to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Art of War Down Under podcast. I'm not telling you which number this is because I got no freaking idea anymore. I'm recording so many of these things in no particular order, just whenever I can line somebody up to record one. I don't know when I'm releasing this. I don't know why I'm releasing this. I don't know anything. Up, down, left, right. Who cares? We're here to do the Vanilla Space Marines Index, and I'm joined by my great friend from just across the ditch, but now he's on the other side of the world, David Gaylard from Team Ignite. And
thank you, man.
The lovely Warhammer 40k Fireside. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's a true Down Under podcast at the moment. So,
it is. And I'm going
to put my best New Zealand accent on.
Do you have a worse New Zealand accent also? Can we have that one at some point?
Bro, I can do a pretty filthy accent, eh? You know what I'm saying?
I love it. Crikey, that's pretty good. But yeah, so if you want the second part of this podcast, I'm going to do this very quickly. If you want the second part of this podcast, it's going to be me and David writing a bunch of Marine lists and telling you how broken they can be, because that is absolutely a thing that Space Marines have available to them in the game right now. If you don't know what you're listening to right now, you're listening to Art of War Down Under. We are primarily a review-based podcast, but we do a bunch of generalist content when there's nothing to review for the great game of Warhammer 40k from a competitive lens. So jump in, get involved, and if you want your one-stop shop for how to stay current, learn what you need to know about playing the game, staying up with and keeping up with the game, jump over to Art of War Down Under over on Patreon and get in the Discord, get involved with the community, all that beautiful things. David, plug yourself, my man.
Yeah. So, I run the 40k Fireside podcast with Vic VJ. If you haven't heard of us before, Vic was second in the world last year. I was fourth in the world last year. We're both just won so many super majors and majors at this point that we kind of lost track. But we're both WTC players, founders and co-captains of Team Ignite, best team in Europe, maybe the best ranked team in the world at the moment. So we play this game a lot. But more than that, we're just really passionate, competitive players. So, yeah.
Very excited about Team Ignite because I see what you're doing over there. You're like, Art of War needs to be pushed, needs to be pressed. And being part of the Art of War camp and having contributed very little to their success on the tabletop, I like to think I do a little bit for the business, but on the tabletop, I like to see, maybe we'll have some competition. You guys put a little all-stars together, or European all-stars team. I like it a lot. But for those of you who are joining us for a first review, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through the rules portion, the non-data slate portions of the indexes with a fine-tooth comb, making sure we squeeze all the information out of it to make it relevant so that when you rock up to the table across from Marines, you know what they can do. And then we're not, because there's 100 freaking units in this thing. We're not going to go through all of them. We're going to go through the most powerful ones, the ones that are going to make the top lists right now.
Adam, you promised me when I came on here that we were going to go through every single
I lied. No, we're going to do the pointy ones, the powerful ones. So I've got a couple of picks. David, his man's got exactly right. Got a couple of picks, and we're going to go through those, and then we're going to tell you a couple more some ones that we like, that we find of value. Of course, we do have the points now as well, and so we'll be able to give you a bunch more detail of those, and we're going to do some list building over in part 2. Mostly, we're going to be telling you about how heinous Marines can be. So join us there. Kicking this off, Army rules, Oath of Moment. If your army faction is Adept Astartes, at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, you can roll the hit roll and you can re-roll the wound roll. How does this stack up, mate, as faction abilities?
I think this is potentially probably the second best one in the game. I think we all know what the best one in the game is. AOWdu, you get to reroll a hit or wound. Well, this is arguably that times a bunch. But this is a really, really powerful ability, primarily because it's going to be coupled with a couple of units in your army that are going to be wanting to, shoot with low-strength weapons or look for devastating wounds. The really bizarre part about this one, this is really strange, is that this is just an army-wide ability. Doesn't matter where you are on the board. Doesn't matter where your warlord is. You could be, up the arse end of nowhere. And you still get 4 rerolls to hit and wound against that target. So
correct.
It's extremely flexible in the sense that you just pick something, boom, delete it, you can imagine that, something like Desolation Marines love this.
Yeah.
And some Space Marine, well, I guess I'll skip ahead. Some Space Marine chapters and abilities and units allow you to have 2 Oath of Moments simultaneously.
Also, I find this to be a phenomenally strong... when I look for an ability or a thing, I weigh it on a couple of different metrics in my head. What are the T's and C's? As people know on this show, I love saying terms and conditions. The terms and conditions of this ability are ridiculous. There's no line of sight restrictions. There's no range restrictions. There's no aura restrictions. There's like you said, there's no warlord restrictions. It's any freaking unit on the table. Who cares if I can see it or not? Now, then you say, well, now that the T's and C's are good, what is it giving me? What's the payoff for it? And the payoff's 4 rerolls to hit and wound, which is very hard to come by en masse in 9th edition. You can get it very selectively kind of wherever you want, and we've found that there's actually not that less rerolls here. And then the third one is this usable? Is this a good rule if it doesn't pay off? Like, if I have no indirect and can I pick a unit and it still have some effect on the table?
Would you play this if you had a 500-point army? Like, you would still play that.
Yeah.
If you had one CP strat where you go, only this unit can use it to 4 rerolls to hit and wound in combat, you would still use it. Still fantastic.
100%. And so that last metric also encapsulates psychological play. So is this a good psychological play, even if I don't get to reroll my hits or my wounds against that target?
This is a tick, tick, tick on all 3 of your
exactly
all 3 of your thirds here, Adam.
It's a banger.
Yeah, with shining stars, I would add as well. Yeah, it's extremely powerful. And what this does, and I won't go into what I don't like about it because I don't think it's good to cover that. But what it's really strong against is if your opponent has something like Magnus, or they've got Scarbrand, or if they've got 20 Necron warriors, they've got big bricks. You just get so much value out of this. Obviously,
exactly right.
Even if it's important in the mirror, or a Wraith Knight, if it's important in the mirror, or just if you're playing maybe AOWdu support web platforms, stick it on that. Try and kill with indirect in one turn. Even something like, it doesn't matter if you're killing units with so many points out of it. If you're removing the key pieces in the game, that's super powerful.
Or even making your opponent not want to use their key pieces in the game.
Yeah, holding them back. If they've got their Magnus on the board, can't play too aggressively with it.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, legitimately, as soon as I read this, I was like, wow, I'm going to make a big, red button token, and I'm going to go walk up to my opponent and be like, I'm putting Oath of Moment on this unit. So when they look at their unit, they're like, oh, geez, if I use it, it's dead. And I want them to look at the token denoting my choice, and just, no, it is bad. Anyway,
so I think just one thing for reference on power level on this. Deathwatch in 9th edition, the Tome of Ectoclades gave you 4 rerolls to hit to wound against the data sheet in a 6-inch aura of your warlord. Now, that was widely considered an extremely good relic. So this is like that, but on steroids.
You don't pay any CP for it. You don't pay any points for it. This is just the thing you get for playing Marines. Any flavor of Marines in the freaking world. It's wild. All right. Tell us about combat doctrines, mate.
Yeah, so they've changed them. I think towards the end of 9th edition, they were probably the strongest they've ever been, right? You could permanently stand Devastator Doctrine. And there were so many armies that synergized well with Devastator Doctrine. They had Codex Warfare, the secondary that synergized with it. They've changed it. I think overall it's a bit weaker than what it previously was. There's no doubt about that. And that's primarily because how the game has changed. But if you didn't know how the game was played and you looked at these 3 doctrines, you would think that's fantastic. So for one turn, you get Devastator Doctrine. This unit is eligible to shoot in a turn which it advanced. Now, this has been like a game-wide rule that so many armies have had. Super reliable. You're always going to love having access to that. Now, Tact Doctrine. So you can pick one of these once per game. Tact Doctrine is this unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in which to turn it fall back. So that gives you a really reliable way to, if your shooting castle gets tagged, fall back and shoot, right? Fantastic. Assault Doctrine. If you guessed it, this unit is eligible to declare a charge in the turn which it advanced. So, a lot of flexibility.
There's the money. So this is all wrapped up in the Gladius Strike Force, which of course is the vanilla Marines detachment. And you can select one of these at the start of your command phase. Now, what is interesting is on face value, that Assault Doctrine looks like an absolute gobsmacked winner. When just once per game, you just be like, my entire army advances and charges. Having gone through the data sheets with the fine-tooth comb now as a Marine player, I ain't that impressed anymore because the melee's not that good.
That's true. Maybe for reference, like Adam and I have played quite a few games at this point, by the way. So
yeah.
I'm not sure how many spoilers we should give you, but you're probably not going to be activating Assault Doctrine that often. Tactical Doctrine you're probably going to activate if you're in dire need, and Devastated Doctrine you're going to activate to really punish your opponent.
Exactly right. Well, the Dev one is the one that I found to be the most interesting. Is when to pull your Dev Doctrine, because then it's more in the current I guess internal phase balance of the game, where previously there was a lot of power to be found in the charge phase, the piling phase, the fight phase, all that stuff. All that power has, and the psychic phase is gone, so a lot of that power just resides in the shooting phase now, and a lot more in the shooting phase. And so I found that the go turn isn't the assault, the advance and charge turn. It's the advance and shoot turn is the go turn. I'm doing the quotate, the kind of rabbit ear thing, like, go turn. Air quotes, yeah, thing. And so I found that to be very interesting to look at it like that. As in, like, the go turn's not getting into combat; it's getting angles.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good vehicles I think Space Marines have access to as well. So Devastated Doctrine's a really good one with that. And I think you're right. A lot of the games are, tactical doctrines like, oh bugger, I messed up. Hit the Tactical Doctrine button. Assault Doctrine, you probably don't click that often. Devastated Doctrine, use Assault Doctrine on the very last turn of the game where you're like, oh, I've still got Assault Doctrine. I'll click that one. And Devastated Doctrine's really like your tactical one, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
You go, okay, when am I going to use this? Now, one question I have as a non-Marine player, Adam, what is this Adeptus Astartes Gladius Task Force? What does that mean? Does that mean I can only play Space Marines? Can I bring Knights and still get Combat Doctrines, or what's the go?
Yeah, so if you are Mono Adeptus Astartes, you can choose to use, well, like all the other, I guess all of the detachments in the game that are now locked to certain factions. So you get this detachment rule, which I guess is encapsulating all your sub-factions are now within your detachment rules, within your Gladius Task Force, your whatever they're called. What's the one for Guard?
I believe it's just called it might be called like a Born Soldiers Regiment or something like that.
Yeah, exactly right. You'll get your detachment rules, and that will encapsulate your, I guess, a couple of buffs like this, like Combat Doctrines. You'll get something for just entering the door. You'll get something like Combat Doctrines, and then in addition, you'll get your enhancements and your 6-pack of stratagems, essentially.
Nice. Cool. I love me a 6-pack.
I don't have one, but it's under here somewhere. But yeah, so Combat Doctrines I have found to be kind of not incredible army-wide. What I found to be incredible is the stratagem that lets me flex into them whenever I want to, and probably a good transition. So we'll just go straight to that one.
What is that one called? Adaptive strategy, probably?
You are absolutely correct, mate.
Wow.
1 CP. When in your command phase, one Adaptive Astartes unit from your army, and the effect is select the Devastator, Tactical, or Assault Doctrine till the start of your next command phase. That Combat Doctrine is active for that unit instead of any other Combat Doctrines that are active for your army, even if you've already selected that doctrine. So this is the one that I found very interesting because, of course, you can just advance and charge whenever you want for 1 CP. Yeah. So I found it much. Yeah, it's extremely good. I mean, you can fall back and shoot and charge. You can advance and shoot for 1 CP. It's very. Yeah. This is my bread and butter. Slap it down every turn strat so far.
Yeah, Deathwatch also, to harken back, Deathwatch also had this stratagem exactly right. You can make a unit White Scars to give it advance and charge.
Correct.
So just generically being available to Marines is really powerful. And when, if melee gets a lot better, this is only going to get miles better, right? Because you're probably going to use it mostly on Devastator Doctrine when you want to advance and shoot a tank, Tactical Doctrine where you don't want to, maybe you've used it already and you need to fall back and shoot with the unit. But, if melee does get better, Assault Doctrine, turn 1, maybe with a Bike Squad combination or something like that. Really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, so one thing we should know, there's been a lot of ums and ahs out there, and I'm here to tell you fundamentally, 100% undeniably, you can take Blood Angels, you can take the non-Codex compliant armies with a Gladius Task Force. You can take Black Templars, you can take Space Wolves, you can take your specialist units, and you'll still get Oath of Moment, of course, but you'll get this instead of what you get in that index.
Sweet.
So instead of getting the plus attack, plus strength, or whatever the hell the Blood Angels you get Combat Doctrines instead, and these stratagems, these enhancements instead of the ones in those indexes. You'll still get to use those your spicy special units.
Sweet.
So there is that.
What's another? So this one's I've seen come up a lot. Now this one here is bonkers strong. Oh, this might be one of the best stratagems in the game. It's called Storm of Fire.
Yep.
Now, this is your shooting phase, one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. So you can use this at any part of your shooting phase, which is really good because you might need to turn it on, you might not need to turn it on.
Yep.
If you've got multiple of units that may benefit from this. Spoiler alert, I'm talking about Desolation Marines. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Ignores Cover ability. If your unit is under the effects of the Devastator Doctrine, which you can put it in with
One
the
CP.
Adaptive Strategy, until the end of the phase, improve the AP characteristic of such weapons by 1 as well. So, what do you want to do? Well, you've got your 10-man Desolation Marines, your Oath the Moment Magnus. You go, all right, I'm going to put my guys into Adaptive Strategy or whatever unit they've got that you want to destroy. And then you go, I'm also going to click Storm of Fire, Ignores Cover, which gets rid of the penalty for indirect. And then I get AP1 as well. So my Castellans go to AP1, Ignores Cover, which means you take 4-ups on your Marines or insert whatever here. Insanely strong, really powerful. It's actually quite weird that this is 1 CP because I think it's really, really good.
I think it's incredible. It's an incredible value stratagem. And you're absolutely right. That's one of the core combos for Marines right now. And so people should be like, if you have 10 Desolation Marines, you should probably be using them because they're one of the best units in the game once again. Interesting thing I'd like to point out for people, and this is a kind of something I've been musing on. Every game that I've played, I think there's less than 3 times that I've shot and someone hasn't had cover. So I think if you want a cover save, you can just have it. And so in my opinion, Ignores Cover is just +1 rend, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
Because everyone has cover all the time, so it might as well be just another rend. Doesn't matter.
It's the same way I read it. And also, I guess if you're not a Marine player and you're listening to this, I think a really good bar, if you're a singles-orientated player, a really good bar in your list designing is, can my list tackle 10 Desolation Marines with Oath of Moments? That's a really good, okay, you've got to have a game plan against that. If you don't, then you're going to be up, shit's creek without battle.
But dude, that is something we're going to be doing in part 2 this week as well. So when we have these problem, and I'm going to use air quotes again, problem factions, we're going to be unpacking how to beat them as well. So there's going to be value in there if you do or don't play this faction. Let's get back to the top of the stratagems, run through them all. So first one is Early in Death as Duty End. This is 2 CP. This is in the fight phase, just as after an enemy unit has selected its targets. The target is one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as a target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. And then until the end of that phase, each time model that unit is destroyed. If it hasn't fought, do not remove it. They can fight that after the attacking unit has finished making all of its attacks, and then you are removed from play. So 2 CP for auto fight on death. We've seen a lot of 1 CP 4-ups or 1 CP 4-up conditional or whatever other conditional fight on death. 2 CP auto fight on death is quite good, but I haven't used it, and I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah, I think the 1 CP 4-up fight on death is more powerful because it's psychological. Are they going to use it or not? But I mean, it's okay. I mean, you've already got 2 bangers so far, so better than what most people do.
But that's the thing, we start with 0 CP, and so in my head, my CP are already accounted for. I don't have any to play with in my Marines army because they're all juicing up with my Storm of Fire, my Adaptive Strategy Storm of Fire combo. And so do I want to invest 2 CP into a unit that is not good at melee to punch in melee, or do I want to just spend the 2 CP for one of the best shooting army units in the game to just keep shooting at optimum capacity? And that's the question. Yeah. All right, you would hit the next one?
Armor of Contempt. It is exactly what it says it is. If you didn't play 9th edition, reduce the AP characteristic by 1. It's not bad. It's actually quite good if your opponent is shooting Desolation Marines at your Desolation Marines. So something worth considering there. Maybe you go second, you've got an additional CP, or you've got a unit that can provide a free stratagem, and they use Storm of Fire. Boom, reduce the CP, reduce the AP by 1, so you're taking 3-ups instead of 4-ups. Probably the most conditional time you're using this. Maybe if you've got a Dreadnought or something like that your opponent's going to try and sink a lot of damage into, I'd probably maybe consider using that. But the way that you evaluate stratagems nowadays is a lot different than how you used to evaluate them in 9th edition.
Yeah.
You're a lot more strapped on CP, and there's one stratagem that's not in any of these 6, which you're probably going to be using the most. We'll get to that at the end. I want to talk about that at the end.
All right, so next up we have Honor the Chapter. This is a 1 CP strat. When in the fight phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Lance abilities. That's +1 to wound if you have charged. If your unit is under the effect of the Assault Doctrine, until the end of the phase, improve AP by 1 also. I like this one a lot. And I'm scrambling to find the unit that I want to use it on. I think it might end up being, there's a little combo in my head of Outriders with a Primaris Chaplain on bike, that sounds good in theory, and I have used it once, and it was very unimpressive. So let's maybe push it to the side for now. It might be a wait and see. I mean, on face value, this is a very good. This is a very good strategy.
Yeah, +1 to wound and +1 AP for 1 CP. Oof.
Amazing.
I think anyone would want that. Yeah. We got one last one. Squad tactics, 1 CP. Your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal move, advance or fallback. One infantry or mounted unit from your army within 9 inches of that unit that just ended the move. Your unit can make a normal move up to D6 or a normal move of up to 6 inches instead if that unit is under tactical doctrine. You cannot select a unit that's within engagement range. This stratagem is quite good. There are several effects like this in the game or datasheets that have this ability baked into them, but there's a very subtle reason why this is very good. And I'll go to it now because it combos very well with the 7th stratagem that everyone has, the Overwatch stratagem. So what you could do is you could actually, your opponent moves into range of you. You could use squad tactics to move your unit closer to them, and then you could Overwatch your opponent, another unit that they previously didn't think that you could Overwatch.
Correct.
So that's a good part about it. Or it's like, fire and fade, right? So if you've got your Desolation Marines and they've got Magnus coming up, maybe you could fire and fade if you can get your units close enough to Magnus so that you can come back into ruin. It's a nice one. I mean, I think a lot of armies would really like this, especially for armies that had primary control, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah, spot on. I love the idea of this for nicking. So you're able to advance onto an objective and only get half of a 10-man onto it, and then your opponent comes over to try and take it off you, and you're like, lol, 1 CP, D6 more inches, and the rest of your squad gets on and they can't take it. So just at a base level, something like that could be very good. It's interesting to I really wonder how often you're going to be able to line this up with Tact Doctrine for the auto 6 move. Just because the Tact Doctrine one seems to be the one that I slap the adaptive strategy on when times are tough. It seems to be hard.
What's interesting though is that you could. So, for example, a lot of some game plans work out like your opponent's telegraphing. Okay, I'm going to come and hit this objective to reduce your primary, right? At a very high level, games sometimes work out like that. And what you can do is you could set your units up so you've just got one model on there, right? Like I think you mentioned, and then just use Tact Doctrine anyway. Just be like, okay, I'm in Tact Doctrine because it's not a huge one to use straight away, right? It's not a big investment. And then you could go, well, if they do try and nick it off me, squad tactics, the rest of my squad onto there. Or you could put one character on there and then squad tactics onto that. Or maybe you've got like a lone operator on there so they can't shoot anyway. They have to come onto the objective. You've got another squad that sits behind but not on the objective within 9 inches covering the objective.
Yes.
Squad tactics onto it.
We're going deep. I love it. Yes, I love it.
It's little things like these that can really change your evaluation of some situations that you think was maybe bad, though.
But I do think squad tactics is one that's going by the wayside a little bit, naturally, because I already said a 2 CP from every turn wants to be used on adaptive strategy Storm of Fire. But there are some ways to make CP use free, which we'll cover pretty soon. So squad tactics is one that excites me a lot because this is the one that I think is the jankiest, where you can just be like, oh, I'm going to do something I didn't think I could do.
Love me a bit of jank.
Yeah, I love a bit of jank. All right, into the enhancements, of which we have 4. First of which is Artificer Armor. Adeptus Astartes model only. I mean, I don't even know why they need to state that. Adeptus Astartes model only in the Adeptus Astartes only detachment, in the Adeptus Astartes only index. But, I'm happy they did.
It's more concise than a lot of rules, so
it is. Who knows? It's them just crossing their T's, dotting their I's, just being just in case. The bearer has a save characteristic of 2+ and the Feel No Pain 5-up ability. How do you feel about that one?
It's okay. I don't think precision is as important as a lot of people thought. So, you can't put it on epic heroes as well, so it's not going to go on the guy that can't lead a squad, for example, right? So, it's okay. I probably wouldn't spend my points for it.
I wouldn't either. Tell us about the next one.
I'm going to go down. The Honor Vehement. Adeptus Astartes model only. Add 1 to the attack and strength characteristics of the melee weapons. While this bearer is under the effects of the Assault Doctrine, add 2 to the attacks and 2 to the strength characteristics of the melee weapons. Now, normally, if melee was good, I would actually say this is quite a good relic, especially because if you had an army that could take, take use of Assault Doctrine. And actually, the really key part here is 2 to the strength characteristic is very good when you have a weapon that would previously wound vehicles on 5s.
Correct.
Push that to wounding it on 3s with +2 strength potentially. That's if you've got little tech piece like in your army for like the knight matchup or the guard matchup, for example, this is where something like that is very good. But, melee's not that great at the moment, so it's not the flavor of the month. So, you hot on it, Adam, or?
I don't love it. Yeah, I don't love it, unfortunately. Mostly because it's really outshone by the last one. But this second one's not too bad. Adept of the Codex is captain model only. At the start of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, instead of selecting a combat doctrine to be active for your army, you can select the tactical doctrine. If you do until the start of your next command phase, that doctrine is active for the bearer's unit only, even if you have already selected that doctrine to be active for your army. So essentially, the tactical doctrine can stay kind of permanently on this captain and their unit.
Yeah. Squad tactics, right?
Yeah, squad tactics. Yeah, I'll jump ahead to the captain's data sheet. All the captains have rights of battle, which is once per battle round. One unit from your army with this ability can be targeted by a stratagem for 0 CP. So this guy can be sitting giving tactical doctrine to his unit perpetually and be squad tacticking or overwatching or adaptive strataging or storm of firing for free. In addition, whether you can link that up.
You're probably using those other three a lot more than squad tactics.
Correct, mate. Correct. Just painting the picture. But that's a thing, and I think that might be the second best of these, because there could be a combo there that I haven't seen, and the reason I haven't seen it is because it's so freaking outshone by this last one.
Yeah, this last one's a real banger. Adept of Society's model only, of course. While the bearer is leading a unit, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have the sustained ones hit ability, so it's exploding sixes. In addition, so not only that, while the bearer's unit is under the effects of the Devastator Doctrine, that's the doctrine you want to put your Desolation Marines in. Each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, an unsuccessful hit roll of a 5+ scores a critical hit. Now, would a critical hit of a 5+ trigger sustained hits, Adam?
It would, mate.
Oh, wow.
Turns out you're correct.
You get exploding 5s and 6s. Now, the most obvious point is to put this on Desolation Marines. Okay,
correct.
Granted, but there's a more nuanced trick on where to put this. Actually, I'll give you a little guess, Adam. They got twice as many wounds and twice as much damage. Do you know the unit I'm referring to?
What, 2 units of Desolation Marines?
No. There's a unit called the Scout Squad, which got infinitely better, and there's a little combo that we'll go into later, probably, which you can use that with, which is pretty spicy. Yeah,
it actually is pretty good. But so when you add it all up, you have the ability to give one unit, mostly shooting unit, exploding 5s with ignores cover, an extra rend, rerolling to hit, rerolling to wound. If it's in Dev, and sticking it in Dev Doctrine every game for 1 CP. And of course that's 1 CP for Storm of Fire as well. So you have a heinous output fire base unit, and it is extremely strong.
And I think that's about 240 points for that combo. Because Deso's, for a 10-man Deso, it's probably about 330 points something. So
once you add it, a support character in there. But this is phenomenal. That combo is the obvious power combo of this index. We're not gonna shirk it. It's extremely good. Could probably be nerfed. Please nerf it. It's fine.
Why does it have the second part of that ability? Why not just the first one? Sustained hits 1. Because the second part is actually the more powerful part. Because there's a lot of abilities that synergize with, 5+ becomes a 6 to hit, for example.
Yes, exactly right. It opens up so many other abusable little things, lethal hits, for examples. Whatever. It gives a lot. So in totality, like the Gladius task force is phenomenally flexible, has an extremely strong inbuilt shooting combo, and is, I think, it's actually a really, really well-rounded thing. In fact, most of the people that I'm speaking to who have been, diehard Space Wolves, diehard Blood Angels, I'm a pretty staunch Dark Angel and Black Templar player, and this looks very usable compared to what we have in our indexes. In fact, I think this is probably better when it's all said and told. Less flavorful, and I don't feel as good about it, but it probably is just better.
It is it's an ideal set of kit to cleanse Xenos planets, that's for sure.
That's right. Fit for purpose. All right, mate. We are on to... sorry, did you want to mention anything else about the whole package?
No. I think we've touched all the bases. Overwatch, by the way, is extremely busted. You oath the moment a unit. If you don't kill it somehow, you just overwatch it and get 4 rerolls to hit. And And by the way, if you're in the Dev Doctrine, a 5+ scores a critical hit, but that doesn't actually trigger. But you do get the sustained hits 1, so you'd be exploding 6s on Overwatch.
Yeah, that's one of the things I meant about particularly meant about the psychological effect of Oath of Moment. Like, you have to worry about using it and getting overwatched, it's compounding, mate. We already told people one of the best bits about the captains. But just to finish off captains, because they're the first one and I kind of started on them, they're quite a flexible data sheet. Usually we'll tell you the stat line and we'll tell you the abilities, and then maybe we'll tell you one or two of the best weapon loadouts that we think. So that's just generally what you can expect for the rest of the show. So Pros captains: move 6, toughness 4, 3 wounds. 3 up save, 5 wounds. Leadership 6, 1 OC. Once again, the Rites of Battle letting you use 1 stratagem for free on their unit. And the finest hour is once per battle. At the start of the fight phase, you can use this ability. If you do, you get 3 more attacks and devastating wounds. And I also need to tell you that combos extremely well with Oath of Moment, once again, when you can get devastating wounds on your possible 8th Power Fist attacks with this walking guy. I think there's some that can have Thunder Hammers, because there's like 10 friggin' captain variants. There's a captain in Gravis, there's a captain in Phobos, all those dudes. What's the first data sheet you'd like to speak to, mate?
Should we start right from the top of the dome? Because I feel like we should go with the new model that Games Workshop released. Because quite often there is a new, they release something new, it's extremely strong. So I believe it's called the Stern Guard Veteran Squad, right?
Yeah, yep. Just
double checking, because I don't play Marines, so this is definitely the new one they released. So they're a mech unit, MEQ, which is like an acronym for standard infantry marine equivalent, which is like a thing that people say. Move 6, toughness 4, 3 up save, 2 wounds, OC 1, leadership 6, which is pretty nice. Leadership 6 is good. Right. I'll just start with their abilities first. They've got a datasheet ability called Bolter Drill. Once per battle in the shooting phase, after this unit has shot, if 1 or more enemy units are destroyed as a result of those attacks, this unit can shoot again. Yep, that's right.
Way good. Very good.
Let's just say your opponent has let's just say there's a main thing you want to kill, but they've also just left something out there that maybe is like a couple of wounds left. Well, you shoot like 2 guys at that, and you shoot everyone else at the main guy, and then you get to shoot again almost guaranteed. So this is extremely powerful ability. Shoot again, I'm saying in air quotes, has been a ridiculously powerful ability for as long as Warhammer's been around. Hive Guard double shooting, for example. So to bake this into a data sheet, it's going to be something good there. But,
yep.
Go for it.
So a great option to be put into any transport that they can go into, including a drop pod possibly, where they get to come out. Usually you'd want them to be the second thing to shoot at the first target. Like you'll pinch hit some indirect, maybe you soften up a unit, kill 1 or 2 things, get these guys an angle, kill 1 thing, and then have them shoot a second time. The first time they shoot, you want them to shoot twice, because as soon as they shoot twice, your opponent's going to like, sweet Jesus, merciful Lord, kill that unit immediately. And they will, because these guys are literally just like 2 wound, toughness 4, 3 up saves. They will die immediately. But if they shoot twice, you don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. They're very easy to value out of. And it's you touched a great note there, is that, you pepper them with the indirect and then, line things up a little bit so that you're in a good spot to kill a unit guaranteed. But you're probably going to be killing units because these guys have the most powerful self-combination of guns I could ever think of. So there is one gun here that's, it's got the 2 keywords that you really want in a gun. It's got anti-X and devastating wounds. Now, what this means is that whenever you wound something on X+, so in this case, it's the combi weapon that has anti-infantry 4+. So if you wound on a 4+, it triggers a 6 to wound, which triggers devastating wounds. It's also rapid fire 1, so it's got 2 shots at 12-inch range. Strength 4, AP 0. You don't care about AP, though, because you're really going to be getting devastating wounds, and then damage 1. So these things destroy infantry for a living.
They absolutely annihilate them. And, of course, when coupled with Oath of Moment, and we're going to refer to Oath of Moment all the time because it's an integral portion of this thing, you can just get 4-ups re-rolling to do a mortal wound. And so you can have 10 of these dudes. Each one of them can have a combi weapon. That's 20 shots. That's 20 mortal wounds, possibly. You can take 2 Stern Guard Heavy Bolters, which also have devastating wounds and sustained hits. So exploding 6s, they are heavy. So if you didn't move for some reason, they're hitting on 3s instead of 4s, but you're still going to have 3 shots with exploding 6s, hitting on 4s, re-rolling, wounding on whatever, re-rolling. Every 6 is 2 mortals in addition. And I'm not even like when you break it down like that. If it's an infantry meta, I'm not even sure if I take the Heavy Bolters. I mean, I probably do, but it's a question.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually that's been we've been chatting about that in our team actually as well, is that, maybe just don't take the Heavy Bolter, you just go for the consistency. Heavy Bolter's a nice profile, especially maybe if you're going against something bigger and you're going to be wounding on 6s anyway. That's where I think it really shines. We'll see like a Wraith Knight, for example, right? You just want to get devastating wounds into it. Very, very powerful. These are something that you should be very aware of. Once again, if you're not playing Marines, this is definitely a profile out there, and it's going to be quite prevalent.
Yeah, totally agree. And how many points will they run you? I'll tell you right now, 105 for 5 models, 210 for 10 models. So 21 points a model.
Yeah, so I'm just going to put it out there. So a common way that I analyze things, just for me personally, is I always look at how many wounds it gets for the points. So for a Marine data sheet, 10 points per wound is about, the starting line, right? But if you also get insane damage and insane data sheet on top of that, that's busted.
They're good, man. They're real good, real good.
They're good.
Seeing as we're so close to it, I'm going to jump down to the Judicia or the Judica next up, because there's a special keyword here. This guy used to give you fights last and used to be able to do all sorts of combos with heroic interventions, all that stuff. Now, none of that nonsense. He just joins a unit, and when he joins a unit, that unit gets the fight first ability. If you don't know what the fight first ability means, it means you fight first. And the order of priority has changed dramatically in the fight phase. So let's say this guy is in a unit of 10 intercessors. Who cares? If you are charged by somebody, the charging units go into the fight first pool also. But the first activation is always on the defending player. So if I have fights first in a unit and I get charged, I am fighting first.
Damn.
I have the choice to fight before everybody else.
But I want to fight first. You get to fight first.
Correct. In your turn, I get to fight first. It's really powerful.
If melee was a thing, fight first would come at a real big premium.
Correct.
Because it's a huge, it's not even an interrupt anymore. It's just no, I fight first. It's really hard to fight around.
And then you have an interrupt. You still have the interrupt strat if you wanted to, I guess. He runs you 75 points, and I think he's worth it in a bunch of different configurations. He's cheap. And of course, he can take one of your enhancements. So he can be one of these guys that's giving you one of your army-wide buffs. What's the next one on your list?
Ooh, you know what I'm doing? I'm control-Fing through what I do, which is a very important keyword that I look for. It's called Lone Operative. Now, this one's a bit more, abstract, I think, but there is, as I am looking through it, I believe, very few units that have Lone Operative keyword. Caven Shrike, who I don't know what he does, but that's fine. But there's one other generic guy that has it, and I believe that is the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. Now,
correct.
Forget his data sheet and everything like that. That's fine. Lone Operative is extremely powerful because the meta right now is extremely shooty. So the ability simply not to be targeted outside of 12 inches means that you can do things like hold objectives, do, I guess technically not an action, but an action, for your secondaries. Something you're going to want to consider as well. And then I look down, and he can't be your warlord or anything because he's the lone operative, and he can't join anything. But, he's pretty good. So you probably want to consider putting something like that. He infiltrates as well. He's got -1 to hit, but the idea is that people are never going to hit him, right?
Yeah. I actually really like this guy, and I'm really happy you brought him up. He was actually a secret little piece of tech that I've used in one of my games so far. And he actually shone because he's infiltrator, lone operative, and stealth with feel no pain 5+. So he's -1 to hit. He's only got 4 wounds and a 3+ save, but he's always going to get cover because he's got stealth, and you're always going to have him in cover. So he's -1 to hit. He's with essentially a pseudo 2+ armor save with 4 wounds with a 5+ feel no pain, and you just stick him out of line of sight on a midboard objective immediately, and he forces a response.
Yep,
he will force a response from your opponent, and he is pretty dirt cheap, if I can remember right. I'll look it up quickly.
Oh, look it up quickly, because I'm going to go on a rant and say that he is the Tyranid killer. He's an anti-infantry combi weapon, but it gets better. He's got an anti-Tyranid weapon. Anti-Tyranid 4-up.
Yeah.
Fuck. Beard combat blades.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This guy's like the Sly Marbo of Space
I mean,
Marines.
he's got his strength 4 with no rend and 5 attacks. He's not very hurty, but he's quite memey when you do playing as Tyranids.
Pretty sweet model as well, I gotta say.
The model is sick. 80 points.
80. I was going to say, if he's under 90 points, boom, I'm in.
He's good.
80 points, by the way, guys. I think 65 to 90 points, if you can get a lone operative unit for that, very, very powerful. It's something you should try to be encompassing in your game, I think.
Yeah. I do really love his evade and survive as well, which it hasn't come up in any of my games yet, but once per turn when enemy unit ends a normal advance or charge move, normal advance or fallback move rather, within 9 of this unit, so not a charge move, you can bug out. You just do a normal move. So you're sitting in an L around a corner, someone tries to come around a corner to get a shot at you and you just jump to the other side of the L. Like you're just like, all right, I was on the inside of the L, now I'm on the outside of the L, still can't see me. So he can be a real nuisance. But yeah, unfortunately, he's not doing much of the kill deathing. But you can get your kill deathing pretty well in other places. One of the ones I wanted to go to, actually, I have a bunch. Let's just get the big one out of the way. Let's go to Desos. Let's go to Desolated Marines.
Ooh.
Let's get it done, because there is some for how powerful they are. There are some things that are holding them back, and one of those being that the units that can join them are really quite restricted.
Yeah, they can't be led by many things.
Yeah, it's boiled down to a is it a Libby and a...
You go through the data sheet. I'm going to
Apothecary. Yeah, I believe it's a Libby and Apothecary. My freaking PDF is just taking forever to load because there's like 211 pages in this damn thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, but so the important things to recap for Desolation Marines are that they actually got cheaper. So just a heads up, they got better and they got cheaper. So
yes.
They kind of got better, like twice as good, and they were already insanely good. So instead of 185 points, you pay 120 points for 5. So I can't remember the last time the best unit in the game went down 50%, but
yes.
I mean, probably a good indicator that you should play this model, as much as I hate them, because they seem to have every gun in the game. So what kind of changed on them? The Vingor launcher actually gained a point of strength somehow, and it's AP 1, damage 2, so pretty much the same thing. The ballistic skill of the Vingor launcher is 2+. Fantastic. So basically it hits on 2s. It's indirect though, so if you move, that's fine. But you can also make it the target opter. So the target optics, which is the sergeant ability, each time this unit remains stationary until the end of your movement phase, ranged weapons equipped by that have the ignores cover ability and can ignore penalty to their hit rolls when making indirect fire attacks. So they
really wanted them to succeed. That is what I'm telling you.
Well, yeah. It's like giving them the best start in life.
It really did. Silver spoon.
They ignore indirect, and that's a great start because you don't really need to move them because their range is 36 inches with the Castellan launcher. The Castellan launcher got less powerful in terms of its strength is lower relative to the strength toughness increase of a lot of units, but it got a whole lot better because of one keyword, the blast keyword. Now, blast not only it doesn't max your shots anymore. It's so much better than that.
It's insane.
It adds shots. So for every 5 models, you get 1 extra shot. And it doesn't matter if it's a D6 weapon or if it's a D3 weapon. So let's say your opponent, and this is probably going to happen. So your opponent has 20 neophytes. You're playing against Steelcold. They got 20 neos. You go, all right, mate, I got 10 Desolation Marines. I'm going to shoot all my Castellan launchers at you. And then you're like, well, you've got 20 models, and they're all blast. So every Castellan launcher gets D3 plus 4 shots. That's
Min
6
50
shots each.
Minimum 50 shots. Well, sorry. A minimum 45 shots because one of them's got a Vengor, right? Yeah.
60 shots on average. Then the Vengor, which is another 60. That's another 7. 67 shots on average. Get out of my game.
With their baby gun, with their oops, I just got this by incidentally having this gun. It's not even supposed to be their main gun.
Yeah, so this is obviously extremely powerful. Another really big buff to these guys was the indirect rule in general. The indirect rule in general, now you only receive the benefit of cover, and that means you can never go better than a 3-up save if you don't start with one, and so 3-up save is super common. Most units have a 3-up save, and then you would get cover. But they're AP 0, so your damage is 50%. You're like 100% more damage against Marines than you previously did in 9th edition, because they're taking 3 ups instead of 2 ups, and then you get more shots and blasts, and they're cheaper. You could run 30, and I probably couldn't criticize your list building capabilities.
So, well, many people are going to, and never has a dumber model been pushed so hard. I would like to say there is one other buff that people have been missing that has given these guys another big lease on life, and that's the fact that dense cover has been removed. Yes. So a lot of the time you would be shooting out of line of sight, so you couldn't see your opponent, so you'd be -1 ballistic skill, and you'd be crossing a forest, so you'd be -1 to hit. So you'd be going from hitting on 3s to hitting on 5s, essentially. And then you'd have some ways to bring that back in the previous edition. But now that's just not a thing. You're just hitting on 3s with this unit, or 2s. You just do it. You just do it. You're just hitting. It's kind of disgusting.
So what's really powerful, of course, is if you're against a GCL cult player, you shoot one unit, you leave one unit within 24 inches, because then you overwatch them with blasts, 67 shots. You're going to get 4 rerolls to hit because you oath the other unit that you don't shoot, and then boom, you're probably getting a bunch because you also got your sustained hits 1. So every shot. So I mean, I don't know the math off the top of my head, but you're probably getting like 75 hits or something like that with sustained hits 1.
With sustained hits 5, yes, 5s to hit are exploding as well, and you're gonna fish them. You're gonna reroll anything that's hitting on 3s. You reroll anything that's not a 3 to get more 5s. So anything that's not a 5 to get more 5s. I think statistically is better.
Yeah.
Than keeping the 3s.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because you get the rerolls and then stuff. Yeah.
And so 100%, you're just going to kill. And unfortunately, these guys, I think, are a polarizing enough element to keep things like 20-mans from really taking off. I believe these by themselves are enough. Even if I didn't think Guard already did a good job of a similar thing as well. The Blast D3 is busted.
Savage.
So as soon as you're shooting at a 10-man, you're doubling the output of the weapon.
Yeah.
Because your average D3 is 2. And then you're starting at 2 shots and then rolling the D3. You've doubled the output of the weapon. It's too good, I think.
Yes, it's too strong. I think these guys should be pointed about 175 points for 5.
Drop kick him out of the game or delete the Castellan launcher and then they're fine.
Yes, exactly. Why do they have all these guns? We didn't even mention the other gun, which is a direct fire gun.
What? They have another gun? Who cares? No, sorry, go.
No, but it is great because if you go against Knights, for example, you do sell the gun with Oath of Moments, and then you've got a great anti-tank platform. But there's a guy that these guys like to hang out with, or maybe there's 2 kind of Marine chapters you might be looking at. And I've never seen this model, and I've never played against him. Well, I've never played against him in 9th edition. But his name is Mr. Rabute Gilliman. I probably butchered his name. But the reason why this guy is fantastic is he allows you to use Oath of Moments twice. So, that's pretty good. You can imagine if you've got 20 Desolation Marines, you pick 2 Oath of Moment targets, and, if you can't work it out from there on, then you're a lost cause because it writes itself.
Pop off, King. It is pretty revolting, man. Yeah.
So, how much is Gilliman right now? He is, I think he's about 300 points, right?
I'm just going to quickly check for you, because I didn't think he was that expensive.
Yeah, we'll see. But, I mean, the broader question, I think, here is that...
355.
355. How much do you pay for a second of Oath of Moments? The answer is it's perfectly fine to pay 355 points for another Oath of Moments, because he's also, he's a beat stick, obviously, right?
Yeah.
He can't be targeted within 3 inches, so he's got the old character protection, which is very, very strong. He's great. I think you should potentially look at playing him. There's Death Watch, which have the option for an enhancement, a 20-point enhancement, I think, which is another Oath of Moment, which is, that's pretty strong.
That one is once per game, though, yeah, but it is very strong.
Oh, it's once per game. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's once per game, but it's still extremely good and very takeable. It's like they're easily their second best and therefore taken enhancement. Do you want to tell us about the scouts you alluded to earlier?
So these have been kind of doing the rounds in my team chat. People have been talking about them because I feel like they got a little bit of a buff. I'm going to give myself a little bit of time because the PDF is going to load. But the main weird part is that they seem to have gotten an additional wound. And they also seem to have gotten an additional point of damage on their snipers.
Yes.
Now, this is a bit strange because they let me ask you a question, Adam. If my model got twice as much damage and twice as many wounds, do you think it would go up twice as much in points?
Surely it would go up at least 50% in points, wouldn't it, mate?
Yeah, not even 50%. In fact, I think they're about 17 points per model now, and they used to be 12 and a half. So really, really powerful. So there is a combo that you can do with this, with a character that can join them. I believe his name off the top of my head is the Tellian character.
Yes, Tellian. This is Ultramarine specific. Yep.
Yes, Ultramarine specific. Who if you're playing, Gilliman, you probably want to maybe do. By the way, these guys also kept the missile launcher and stuff like that, right? So, and the Thunderhammer. So, since we're basically playing with power level equivalent now, all the war gear is free. So yeah, you get a missile launcher as well, which with Oath of Moments and a kind of vehicle heavy meta is like really good too. So they've got infiltrators and scout 6. So for some reason you want to infiltrate and scout move. Okay, fantastic. At the end of your opponent's turn.
So I think you're looking at the wrong ones. There's the the scout squad, and then there's the scout sniper squad. The scout sniper squad doesn't have the scout, but it has infiltrate and stealth still.
Sorry, you. Thank you for correcting me.
No problems at all, mate. It's confusing. It's confusing as hell.
You can't get the missile launcher on the scout sniper squad.
You can. But you can get the missile launcher. You can't get the Thunderhammer.
Fuck me. All right, we're off to a rough start. Okay, but these guys did get wounds to damage to sniper rifle, and you can take the enhancement to get critical hits and sustained hits, and then you can use them with Oath of Moment. So the real question I have here is like, these guys, aren't they just better than like intercessors because they have like the same more or less profile, and they have a heavy precision damage to -2 guns? It's crazy, right? So what is the justification for playing like a regular Marine over a Scout?
There isn't. It's
they also infiltrate. Yeah,
they infiltrate, they stealth, and they have concealed positions. And you know what the concealed positions special rule is, mate? Oof. It's lone operative. You can only be shot if you're within 12 of the scout snipers. I am literally looking at I have 15, and I might play 15. I might play 3x5 because I think they are crazy good.
And they can go in a really good transport now. Yeah. So maybe the PDF is going to take a while to load, but they can go in the Land Speeder Storm, which actually has a firing deck capability as well. Yes. Yep. So, the best transportability, they've also got it. Firing deck is very, very powerful. And, speeders are really fantastic for playing the secondary mission, which is really, really important as well. So if you're taking tactical missions, 5 scouts and a speed and a storm, that's really, really strong. Because you can disembark and then be outside of 12 of whatever shot you anyway. So really powerful. And when you disembark now, you only take mortal wounds on ones. So you're probably not even going to lose a guy because they're 2 wounds each. Fantastic. Really ace tier unit. Extremely strong.
If you are joining us from 9th edition, you may have a lot of Vanguard veterans. And I'm here to tell you that you should look to do something different with your Vanguard veterans because you will not be playing them this edition as it sits right now. They are. Can you check the points for me while I tell people how bad they did our boys? So as it sits right now, they have 1 melee weapon option, which is an heirloom weapon, which is essentially a power weapon with 1 less rend for some reason. It's not even a rend 2. So it's strength 5, rend 1 damage with 4 attacks. That's all you will attack with a Vanguard veteran. No more, no less. No Thunderhammers, no Power Fists, no nothing. And their special rule is each time this unit ends a charge move, until the end of the turn, melee weapons equipped with this models with this unit have lethal hits. So 6 to hit will go straight through the wound step. But at strength 5 or 1 rend, who cares about that? Really done bad.
Yep. I mean, there's not much more to say about that because these guys were a staple, very iconic unit.
Yep.
They had so many loadout and compositions you could take with them.
Correct.
That are no longer available. So simplified, not simple. You simply don't take them.
You see, exactly right. If they simplified it for you, you just don't take it. You just don't take the unit. And it's quite sad to see like a staple unit go the way of the Dodo. There are some other cool options here. I don't mind aggressors, mostly because I think they bring a decent little bit of punch in a defensive manner, while also bringing the nice flamers for a good Overwatch target. The same thing could be applied for the flamers can be applied to the new Inferno squad as well, who are dirt cheap. But each time an aggressor shoots at the closest target, you get AP. You get another AP. So of course the flamers going to AP 1 is quite nice when they have D6 +1, ignores cover, auto hitting, twin linked, rerolling to wound. That's a good Overwatch. You auto hit, And they reroll to wound. It's a very good Overwatch versus some things like demons, GSE. So many things really hate that profile. They are toughness 6 with 3 wounds, which is quite nice too.
Yeah, nice. Should I go on to the guy that we've maybe overlooked? The one character that can join the Desolation Marines is the Primaris Apothecary, right?
Yeah, and there's the Librarian, I believe.
The Librarian as well. Yeah, I think the Apothecary is just genuinely better in terms of from what I've seen. But I'm just looking at my friend's list here, and he's taking the Primaris Apothecary with the Bolt of Discipline enhancement, and he's taking that with 10 Desolation Marines. So that's kind of a staple if you're a bit of a new player to Marines. Start your list off with that. Is a really fantastic way.
So there was a bit of a discussion in a couple of chats that I was in for which was better, the Primaris Librarian or the Apothecary. So the Librarian will give you a 4-up Feel No Pain against psychic attacks and a 4-up Invulnerable save to the unit. Now, the Apothecary lets you just res a guy, right? He lets you resurrect a dude. Doesn't give you the Feel No Pain anymore, but it brings one back to life. Now, when we were extrapolating how these units get used on the table, we realized that very few times our Desolation Marines getting directly shot. So then we analyzed all the other indirect in the game and realized there's very few pieces. In fact, there's almost no pieces that are going to put you on a worse save than a 4-up armor save. So on your 2-up in cover. So most things are only Ren 2 from indirect. So they're not taking you worse than a 4-up anyway. So you're better off resing a guy.
Yeah, you're better off resing a guy. The only thing that can do that is Guard, who have the Fields of Fire stratagem.
Correct.
Where they can get plus 1 AP, so AP 3 on the Manticore. But yeah, other than that, you're right. Which is, I guess, is one positive thing to say about indirect, is that you can't get that much AP on it.
Yeah, the AP isn't absurd. Totally.
Yeah,
absurd.
I don't think you could really, we're splitting hairs at that point, really, though.
Yeah.
You could argue both of them are great. We couldn't argue against you. Now, we've covered a lot of, infantry units, but were there any vehicles that you were a fan of? I've got a couple.
There are a couple. You start first, mate.
It's called the Predator Annihilator. I think you might have had this one on your list as well.
I did.
This
130 points. 130
cheap,
points.
Man. Yeah, 130 points. And, you've got access to Oath of Moments, but having a little bit of anti-tank in there is maybe not a bad idea anyway. Now, you can take this with just the regular old las cannon, but he can get 2 las cannons. So, okay. I mean, in 8th edition, if you told me, I've got a tank with 2 las cannons, 9th edition, if you told me, I've got my Predator with 2 las cannons, I would have been like, what are you doing? That's terrible.
Yes.
But actually, it's quite good these days. Because Strength 12, Neg 3, D6 plus 1 is actually kind of the standard anti-tank profile.
Yeah.
But the Predator's got 2 of those, and he's actually got a really, really good data sheet ability. Each time a range attack by this model is allocated to a monster or vehicle model, reroll a damage of 1. So, pretty sweet.
It's pretty nice.
130 points. It's dirt cheap, T10, 3-up save, moves 10, which is kind of speedier, and you can put that at advanced shoot on it, wounds 11. It's pretty sweet. I like it.
Some interesting things they've done with land speeders, so you can no longer squadron any of your land speeders. Now they're all single units, and they all have a little bit of a thing that they do for you, like if they shoot at a thing or point at a thing and you get a buff. One of the ones that I like, and because this was one of my favourite units in my Ravenwing lists in 9th edition, is the land speeder Thunderstrike. And this got a big durability increase. This was toughness 6, it's now toughness 9. Wow. It was 10 wounds, now it's 11 wounds. It went up phenomenally in durability. It still has the same missiles, like it still hits on 2+ base with its two anti-tank guns, one of them being a 1-shot strength 12 -3 D6 plus 1 gun, and then has 2 shots at strength 9 -3 D6 plus 1. But the reason I like it is because each time this model has shot, select one enemy monster or vehicle that was hit by one or more of its attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time another Adressa Astartes unit makes a ranged attack against that target, +1 to wound.
Yeah.
That's really
pretty big
good.
buff.
It's 160 points. It's a little bit on the XE side. I would much for just bringing it for that ability, because you're mostly prioritizing that ability. But it lets one of my other favorite tanks really pop off. Now, I want to tell you all about the Gladiator Lancer.
Oh, I was just about to do that.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. We're in. We're in. We're seeing eye to eye, mate. I mean, this also is a reason that it actually helps your little dinky guns, your multi-melters, your things like that, punch up into things like big knights, things that they'd wound on 5s. They get back to the 4s with the +1 to wound. So it's not insignificant there either. You know what? If you are ready to go with the Lancer data sheet, because my one's taking a while to load, you pop off.
Yeah, you're fine. So the reason why the Lance is pretty similar to the Predator, but its gun's a little bit different. Instead of okay, never mind. It also has 2 shots of a las cannon. Attacks 2, I just read. So it's just, I think this is an important point to mention. It's 15 more points. Okay, but you get a lot more for 15 more points. So it still has 2 shots. Strength, so it's +2 strength, which means it's probably going to be wounding the vehicles on 3s now, which is great. And it's D6 +3. So minimum +2 damage, but each time this model is selected to shoot, you can reroll a hit roll. You can reroll a wound roll. And you can reroll a damage roll.
So good. So good.
Yeah,
so
this
good,
thing,
man.
Point and clicks, if you haven't got the points to shave off and fit in, the Lancer, maybe go with the Annihilator. But the Lancer, for 15 more points, is pretty, I think it's pretty good.
I think it's very good. Toughness 10, 12 wounds, not bad at all. Moose 10, again, the same. Still doesn't fly, unfortunately, even though it hovers.
True.
But, here we are. Got a bunch of little dinky guns as well. But the Laser Destroyer is actually really, really good. So hitting on 3s with a reroll, wounding on 3s into the vast majority of targets with a reroll, and then D6 +3 with a reroll, really reliable.
Yeah, it's actually super... it's actually one of the best anti-tank guns in the game right now.
Correct.
2 shots, and D6 +3 is a really incredible profile, and 14 -4 is really, really good. So there are a lot of weapons that pay a lot more than 145 points for that, especially on a chassis that's a lot worse.
Yeah, totally agree, man. Yeah. I'm really high on the Gladiator Lancer.
I was going to say, do you like speeders?
I do.
I do. Speeders are pretty good.
So give us your take of the speeders, and I think we'll have to wrap up. We'll talk about the Whirlwind after the speeder, and then we'll close out.
Sure. I think so. I don't think it matters what speeder you go for. If you're playing scouts, maybe play Land Speeder Storm. But the real important part about speeders is that they're really good at playing the secondary missions.
Correct.
They're cheap. They move 14, and the rest. And so they give your army a huge rounded approach to not only being a really killy army, but being really good as well. The Land Speeder Storm is like, not that good at runs over stuff and then takes that stuff takes extra damage, right? Like that's not that great. But like the just regular Land Speeder, for example, gives you, if it's shot, select one enemy unit that's visible to this model until the end of that phase. Each time your Adeptus Astartes Desolation Marines model make an attack with a blast weapon that targets that enemy unit. Add 1 to the hit roll and add 1, and that ability ignores cover. It doesn't actually say Desolation Marines, but it's probably what you're going to be using it for.
Well, because the single land speed is a great tech piece to make your second unit of Desolation Marines pop off, right? Because one of us is going to have the exploding 5s, this and the ignores cover and a rend 1 innately for the Dev Doctrine. This is a way of making the other one relevant. So it gets +1 to hit and ignores cover. So I'm actually 100% with you. I like a single regular land speeder for being an enabler for my second Deso squad.
Yep. This is why I like you, Adam. We like the same things.
we do actually like the same things. It's quite cute.
Although I don't know about the Whirlwind, bro. You're going to have to sell me on that.
So 125 points. It's the same move 10, toughness 10, 11 wind chassis that we're seeing pretty much everywhere else. It has, in your shooting phase, after this model has shot, if one or more of those attacks were made by this Whirlwind's Vengeance Launcher scored a hit against an infantry unit, they must take a battle shock. But its shooting is 72-inch range, blast indirect, D6 +3, hitting on 3s, strength 8, -2 damage for 125 indirect.
So what are you going to be killing? What's your prime target, Adam?
It's other Desolation Marines. Exactly right. Because Desolation Marines are so good, other people are going to take them, so you need to take a Desolation Marine solution, and this is your best one, I believe.
I really agree, yeah. And it's got blast as well, of course, so you're really looking at, against a 10-man Desolation Marine squad, D6 +5. So D6 +5, average 8 shots, you get 6 hits, 2s to wound after that, and then they fail a couple, 3 or 4 dead Desolation Marines on a good day at work per turn, which puts your opponent on a bit of a clock. So,
exactly right. Yep.
Well, of course, you're oath momenting their Desolation Marines. So
exactly
it's probably, auto hitting and auto.
Exactly. Yeah, it really, really is. But, dude, on that note, we are going to have to wrap up this part 1 of the episode. In the competitive lexicon of the tier rankings, where would you put vanilla Space Marines right now with that Gladius Task Force? Where would you put it? S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier?
I think they're the second best army in the game. I think we all know Eldar is the best army in the game right now. And Marines are not that far off them.
I do not believe they are.
If you're a really talented Marine player, you could probably beat, an Eldar player who's rocking up to the board half cooked. So, yeah, I think they're really powerful. They shut out so many armies. They're definitely a meta-staple army that you need to consider what your game plan is, because you're going to be hitting them. They're the most popular faction of Warhammer players all over the world. So you expect them to be played in really heavily represented numbers.
Absolutely right. So you need to know them, and you need to know what to do into them, and you need to know how to play them. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you so very much again, Dave, for coming on. Please jump over to part 2, where we're going to be writing some lists, talking about the couple of games that we've played with these guys, either into or against them, and then unpacking them if you are building a list to be good at them, and unpacking them if you're going to be building a list to be good into them. So thank you very much, mate. We'll see you next one.
No problem. Hey, have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40K, hosted by Adam Camilleri, produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.